Hello friends, my name is Leslie and this is Leslie's Cancer Confessions. If you're here, you've probably found me because you have metastatic breast cancer or somebody you know has it. Either way, this is a blog where I share my journey of living for the past 8 years with metastatic breast cancer. Metastatic breast cancer is a cancer that starts in the breast and is treatable, and then for whatever reason develops a mind of its own and travels to other spots in your body, organs, bones, brain, and when it does that, it becomes stage 4, incurable, terminal breast cancer. Just because it's somewhere else in the body doesn't mean that it's bone cancer now that it's in the bones, or lung cancer if it's in the lungs. It's breast cancer that has traveled. It's metastasized. Now that we've got that out of the way, let me state that if you have been following me for a while, I'm going to put my glasses on because I have notes to keep me on track. I have the dogs in my room with me, and I'm in my bedroom because it's got the best amount of windows for natural light. Anyway, back on track. If you have been following me, then you know I've lived with this for 8 years, and you probably noticed a lapse of videos since December. And there's a reason for that. So I'm going to backtrack to the previous March, jump ahead to October, and then explain why I have not been filming. Okay, so previous March, I had a stroke. That stroke happened, hey guys, that stroke happened in the midst of my family moving from Chicago to Tennessee. So we were looking for a home, and I didn't feel well, and traveling back to Chicago, I went to my oncologist and said, just on a regular visit, that I wasn't feeling well and thought I might be having a stroke, which he confirmed. So I had a stroke in March. And then we moved in April, and then now we're in October. In October, my daughter was with me and said, hey, you're not acting right. You seem to be confused. Your speech is weird. I think you're having another stroke. So she took me to the ER, and they discovered that, yes, in fact, I had had a stroke that they could see on the left side of my brain, the one from March, another one slightly behind my ear that I was having at that moment. But then they also said, hey, you've got this weird spot in the back of your brain. It is not a stroke, but we don't want to call it metastatic breast cancer that is in your brain or a tumor of any kind, because it's just something we've just discovered. So we're going to watch it. So that was in October. And I'm sure if you followed, you may have heard me mention it and be concerned about it in my blogs. So fast forward to December, February, April, I had repeat scans, specific scans called MRI of the brain. And those scans showed that the spot, which I named spot, was growing. It went from 2 centimeters to 4 to 6 point something. And all the while, I had been telling my doctor, my oncologist here, that I was concerned. And her response was, oh, have a positive attitude. we don't know what it is. We need to watch and wait. But it was growing, and having cancer, living with it, having had it spread, researching my own disease, I knew that something in your brain that doesn't belong there, growing, is bad. So I said, okay, I had been going to this oncologist since December. And she was not taking it seriously. It didn't seem to matter to her as much as it did to me. So I took all of my MRI scans and contacted my previous oncologist from Chicago and communicated that I was frustrated, that I wasn't being heard, that I was concerned about the growth. I was convinced that it was metastatic breast cancer that had metastasized to my brain, and I flew to Chicago with my husband to visit him. Now, he saw me on a Wednesday and said, hey, yeah, I see what you're saying. I want to look deeper with a second opinion from a radiology professional. Can you come back tomorrow? So I did, and he did have other people look at it, and he said, hey, you know, here are the things that it could be in your brain. You could have a vascular abnormality, which is weird veins that grow in your brain. They just don't hurt you. They're just there. It's a vein. It can't, as far as I know, turn cancerous. It's not benign. It's just a vein, vascular. But that had never shown up on any scan that I've had in the past 8 years of my brain. Vascular malformations form when you're in the uterus, becoming a human being, and you have it your whole life. So if you ever had a picture of your brain, it would have shown up. And I've had so many brain scans, 2 to confirm my stroke, and many before my stroke to make sure that I hadn't had any spread of disease. So, with that said, he said, my oncologist in Chicago said, it's not a vascular malformation. It's also not a stroke because of the shape and size and placement in your brain. It's pretty much positively, and the only way you can know for sure is to do a needle biopsy and check out the cells to determine for sure 100% that it is metastatic breast cancer. But without doing that test, it's probably metastatic breast cancer that has spread to your brain. And he recommended that I go have radiostatic surgery to kill it, which is radiating the spot, to kill just that spot without damaging any brain tissue. So I had an appointment here in Tennessee with a neurologist who specializes in the brain. I went to visit him, and he said, hey, you know, here, I've looked at your stuff. I've done a new test. It's in fact grown since the last test. And what I believe, it could be a vascular malformation. And I said, no, it's not that, and here's why. Because it's never been on any imaging prior to me having my stroke. So it cannot be that. He said it could also be a stroke. And I'm like, no, it cannot be that, and here's why. So I explained why. And I believe he was stating these things to see how much of a proactive patient I was. and also to see how much I knew about my own disease. So after he had established that I did in fact know and was very aware of my disease and what's happening in my body, and I explained to him that I am an expert at Leslie Bolus. I can tell you everything that there is to know about her and all of the medical things that are going on with her. He determined that yes, in fact, it was most likely metastatic breast cancer in the brain, but he couldn't confirm it without a needle biopsy, which is not something they like to do because that disrupts the cells and could scatter them and cause more tumors. So they determined that I needed to come in immediately and have radiostatic surgery because it had grown over the course of 4 scans and would continue to grow until it was killed. So that was in the end of April and the beginning of May 8th, I had radiostatic surgery. It was very traumatic. I was told I wouldn't hear anything, smell anything, feel anything, that it was in and out outpatient surgery, but that is not true. If you're having it, you should know this. It's survivable. It's not something that you have to fight a scar or healing tissue or an incision or stitches or anything like that, because it's literally radiation, a laser beam going into your brain only to the spot that is affected, where the cancer is growing. Sorry, my dog wants to tunnel under the blanket. So I went in on May 8th. I had the procedure done. Took 30 to 45 minutes. You're on a table. Your face is strapped down by a mask that is screwed into the table to keep you from moving your head. You have a bit of the mask in your mouth, literally holding you in place. So they mount the mask to the table. They tell you the procedure is beginning. You're flat. You hear a loud beam going ring, and that pulses for, I don't know, 3-4 minutes. And then the sound stops and you feel the table move. Kung. So it moves to relocate the beam. And then you hear the sound again. And they did this 6 times. They moved me left to right, back, forward, up. All the while, I am freaking out because of the sound and the smell and the movement, which I was not, sorry, I have a drippy nose. I was not really warned about. So it's kind of like being pitched in an earthquake. And also I smelt this really very strong smell of burnt toast the whole time. The smell didn't go for a couple of days. It lingered with me. I felt very confused and out of it afterwards, kind of like I did during my stroke. Since then, and right now it's the end of July, since then, the headaches have gotten better, but that's not because of the treatment. It's because I was on 2 types of estrogen receptor inhibitors, and the new oncologist that I'm seeing has removed me from one because I was being overdosed. Oh, let me backtrack. I'm seeing a new oncologist, one that will actually listen to me. This oncologist was referred to me by my previous oncologist in Chicago. She is the head of the Breast Cancer Center at Vanderbilt University, and she's on several committees that work with the president and with other scientists around the country to try and cure metastatic breast cancer, because that is the only cancer in the breast cancer spectrum that kills you, that you will die from, that will eventually take my life. Any stage below 4 is treatable, and you can have surgery, chemo, and radiation slash burn and cut to treat it and live a long, healthy life. But with me, I'm on chemo until I run out of chemos to try, and then I maybe could go into a clinical trial. Certainly can't cut it out of my bones or my lungs or my chest wall or my arm. At any rate, that is what's been going on with me since December. So I've been focused on getting second opinions, having tests, seeing neurologists, having radiostatic brain surgery, and I don't know why they call it surgery, because they're literally not cutting, but I guess the laser is a surgical instrument, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, that is what I've been going through. That's what's been happening. Let me look at my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything.